Today we're doing a what's in my camera case for 2025. As you guys may know, I am a wedding videographer and I personally take the Nanook 950 with me to every single wedding I film. This is just able to house the 4 camera bodies that I carry with me pretty easily in all the lenses, drones, and other accessories. So this has been the case of choice for all of last year and going into this year. I think I am pretty close to maxing out its capacity, but so far I'm able to fit everything in here pretty comfortably, but we'll see how 2025 goes. And getting right into it, first things first, the camera body. This has changed since the last time I did this video. Now I'm primarily using Sony FX3s, and I have 2 of them. One of them's right here, and a second one is filming a B angle down here. So the 2 FX3s are my A and B camera, and I film pretty much like 80 to 85% of the day just on these 2 guys here. And I bring out my C and D cameras for like the ceremony and all of the speeches because I need the additional angles there. But for most of the day, I'm just rocking the FX3 and it works just fine. Honestly, the #1 reason for switching from the A7 IV was simply just the second native ISO at 12,800. The A7 IV has a second native at 3,200, which for weddings, it's not the greatest thing in the world. The 12,800 on that camera is relatively clean, but it doesn't hold a candle to what this guy can do in low light. Honestly, after switching to this guy, lighting has very much just been like a creative choice. Like if I'm carrying lights with me to a wedding, it's just to shape the lighting. It's not because I need it, because this guy can essentially see in the dark and it's fantastic. So the A camera goes right here and the second FX3 would go right next to it. Moving on, we have the C and D camera, and that would be my trusty old A7 IV. And again, I'm using the second one to film this video right now. Honestly, this camera has treated me very well, and I don't really have any complaints with it. Again, the second native isn't the greatest thing in the world, but I don't really want to bash this camera. I've gotten some incredible images out of this guy, and I just had to demote it a little bit to my C and D camera because of the FX3s, but this is still a very solid, very capable camera. If you guys are just starting to make good money from your business and you're looking to get a good Sony camera, this is honestly my #1 recommendation all the time, even over something like the FX30. I just think the full frame sensor on this A7 IV is just absolutely stunning. So I would recommend this camera in a heartbeat. So the C camera goes right over there, and the last slot is for that A7 IV that I'm using right now. Moving right along to lenses, and absolutely hands down my most used lens is actually a new addition to my bag, and this is the Sony 50mm f1.2. I picked this lens up about halfway through last year, and pretty much everything I film on this lens is absolutely stunning and just magical. Even though this is a prime, I still try to keep this on my A camera like 80 to 90% of the day, and I'm able to do that because I always go with the second shooter, so my second shooter is able to get like the 24 to 70 range or something like that. But I always try to shoot on this 50, and I feel like it's just become part of my style that my couples are looking for in my work. So that's what I want to deliver, and I think the 51.2 is just amazing. So I highly recommend checking this lens out, and I'm probably going to be making a full review of this guy very soon. Let's just get all the primes out of the way first. Next up, we have the 85mm f1.8. This is also one of my favorite lenses. I've had this for a very long time. This was actually the first ever prime lens that I bought for the Sony E-mount. I love this lens. There's not a lot of bad things you can say about it. Before I bought the 50, this used to be the lens that I would shoot all the couples' portraits with. Of course, since this is an 85, you can't really keep this on your camera all the time because that can be quite limiting. The 50, you have a little bit of freedom there. You can kind of work with a 50mm all day, but 85 can be quite challenging. But this is still a great lens, especially considering its price. I think it's like, you can easily pick this up for like $500 used because this is so old. There's tons of used options out there. Even brand new, I think this is only like $750 Canadian. And for that price, I think it's an absolute steal. So I would highly recommend, if you guys are looking for like a first prime lens, this 85 is an absolute no-brainer. And I always recommend getting an 85 over a 50 as your first lens, simply because if you guys already have your kit lens, chances are that your kit lens already covers the 50mm range, and most kit lenses don't go to 85. So when you're getting an 85, you're actually getting something brand new that you haven't tested before. So that's why I would recommend an 85 over a 50. And after the 85, another lens that actually goes right on top of here is the 20mm that I'm using to film this video. And this is what I've been using to film all my A-roll for like the past 2 years. This is my trusty 20mm. Not a lot of uses for a 20 at a wedding, but just for like the wide establishing shots. And I've also shot some details with the 20. It just gives it like a very interesting point of view. So it's something I would recommend trying if you guys have it, like the ultra wide look for like detail shots. But if not that, establishing shots, a 20mm is always great for that. And since I have the space for it, it just goes right on top of my 85 here. So let's move on to zoom lenses now. And the zoom lens that I surprisingly use more and more now is the lens I'm using to record this top-down angle. That would be the Sigma 28-70 contemporary lens. I also have the Sigma 24-70, which I also take with me, but since this is quite an older lens, this is using like an older optical formula, and the only thing I don't like about this lens is that it's quite bulky. So that's why this doesn't come out of my bag as often these days. But the 28-70 is so much lighter, and I find that I don't really have a need for the 24-28 range. I can easily get away with a 28-70. And it's just so much smaller that I just end up using it so much more. In case I do need something wider, I do have the Sigma 24-70, or even wider, I have my 20mm. And there's hardly any circumstance where you need to go wider than 20mm, especially for video. So I don't really have like a 16-35 or like a 14mm or anything like that. I also have access to like crop mode or clear image zoom, so I can take these lenses a lot further than 70mm, so it hasn't really been an issue there. But I am thinking about selling my Sigma 24-70 for the Tamron 35-150. I've just heard so many great things about that lens, and this 24-70 has just become a bit redundant. As you guys can probably tell, this lens has seen better days, and this was the very first lens I bought for like my A7 III like 5 or 6 years ago. So yeah, it's served me well, but I think it's time for this lens to go, and I'm probably going to be getting the Tamron 35-150. Moving right along to drones, and this is also something that has changed. I now carry a DJI Air 3S instead of the Air 2S. And honestly, I picked this up like 2 weeks ago, and since I live in one of the coldest places in the world, it is extremely cold outside and I can't really fly it right now. There was one day where it wasn't super cold, so I got some cool shots, but I just really was looking forward to trying the 70mm lens that this drone has to offer, so I got to try that a little bit. Honestly, initial thoughts after using the 70mm lens just once, I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to, and I'm really looking forward to using it a lot more this wedding season. I feel like this is just going to give my work so many more creative angles, and I'm just really looking forward to that. I mean, I knew it was going to be different, but I just didn't realize just how different. So I feel like it's going to be really exciting, really unique to use this guy for this wedding season. And of course, with the drone, we also have the drone controller, and this time I did get the RC2 controller with the screen built in because I was just kind of tired of using my phone all the time. So this is like a nice permanent fix. And this is the same size as the old controller, so it doesn't really take up any extra room. And of course, we have the extra batteries as well. Nothing too exciting there to see, and they just go at the very back of the case. Next up, let's move on to camera monitors, and I take two with me. First of which being this guy right here. This is the Shinobi 5. This is for my second shooter because he prefers 5-inch camera monitors. I'm more of a 7-inch camera monitor guy. So it's small enough, it just slots right here with my lenses. Perfect little spot for it. The second monitor is not this guy right here. This is just like a placeholder monitor. This is a des view, but I use a Shinobi 7. So it's matching monitors, just a slightly different size. And I personally prefer the bigger form factor, and it's roughly the same size. I'm using my Shinobi 7 to view myself right now, so that's why it's not here. But it's the same size and it slots in at the very back there. Next up is also something new that I added to my kit, and that would be these Hollyland C1 Pro headsets. I picked these up on sale on Black Friday, and I haven't really had a chance to use them yet, of course, but I'm looking forward to it. I've heard some great things, and I really wanted to pick up the ones with noise canceling. I feel like it's just going to be a nice feature to have, and I feel like Hollyland, like these are just the ones that people recommend the most often. So we'll see how it goes, and I'll of course let you guys know as well. I think next on the list is audio. So starting off with my primary recorder, I'm actually using it to record this video right now, but that would be the Zoom F3. And I think I picked this up sometime last year, so it wasn't in my last what's in my camera bag, but it's a great little recorder. It does 32-bit float. Can't really ask for much else, and it also records all of my YouTube videos here. The second recorder that I carry with me as a backup would be this guy right here. This is the Zoom H4n. This is not my primary recorder because I want to use a 32-bit float recorder as a primary, but in case something happens to that recorder, I do have a nice little backup here. And it's also nice because this takes combo jacks, XLR and 1/4 inch, so that gives me no issues ever, and I love using the Zoom. My next recorder is the same as last year, and that would be the Sony TX660. And I think this is a very handy backup recorder that everyone should have. The battery life on this, amazing. The internal storage is great, and the little clip at the back, it's just all in a very nice package, and it's very easy to clip onto people or just kind of gaff tape it to like a microphone or just toss it in any corner. Audio quality isn't the greatest thing in the world, but it's not really meant to. This is just supposed to be better than your on-camera audio, and this just comes in handy all the time, and it's so small that it just doesn't take up any space in your camera bag, so I highly recommend carrying one of these guys with you. And of course, no wedding videographer's kit is complete without these guys right here. These are the Tascam DR10Ls. And I have 2 of them just for backups. I do want to pick up a third, like a white one to mic the bride. I haven't really done that ever, but I think that's something I might want to do for 2025. I personally don't bother with any wireless solutions, and I made a whole video on it. You guys can check that out on the channel. But the main point being is that I just don't trust them. So these are wired, they're never gonna fail, and it's just a great thing to have in your camera bag. So even in 2025, I'd still recommend checking out the Tascam DR10Ls. If you guys wanna do the pros, that's great. But the old ones, the originals, they work just fine. Of course, all of these audio recorders also need audio cables. So these are all the cables I take with me, and I carry them all in like a nice little pouch. This is from my Low Pro backpack. This is like meant for batteries on the outside of the bag, but I have it, I use it here, and it fits perfectly in one of the slots. First up, we have the trusty old XLR to XLR. So this is male to female. This is your standard XLR cable, but recently I've also started carrying this guy here. This is a male to male XLR, like a short little cable. And the only reason I carry this is because sometimes couples are using like the venues, like built-in mic system or something like that. And the venues will often have like an output like along the wall somewhere, like they'll have like a little outlet that you can plug right into. But often those will have like a female out. For my XLR cable, the male end has to go into the Zoom. So I'm left with the female, and the wall has a female, so like the female doesn't work over there. So instead of carrying an entire male to male cable that's like 6 or 10 feet long, I just carry this tiny little adapter, so I can still use my regular cable. So this male end goes into the wall, and then the female end can go into here, and I still have the male end to go into the Zoom F3. Honestly, this is a very technical problem that I had at one of the weddings I shot last year. So that's why instead of having no audio, I would rather just carry this tiny little adapter. Next up, we have an XLR to 1/4 inch. Again, this is a male XLR again, because the male end goes into the Zoom, which doesn't take 1/4 inch. And in case the DJs only have 1/4 inch, then I have a 1/4 inch cable for that as well. And lastly, this is honestly my favorite cable to use. This is an XLR, again, male XLR to RCA. And the RCA is a very old school port that not a lot of DJs are using for any of their equipment, but their soundboards most definitely still have an RCA out or most of them at least. So just in case all of their XLR ports are taken, the 1/4-inch ports are taken, this is like the last resort, and this comes in handy more times than you can imagine. So I always carry this guy with me. Honestly, I would rather leave the XLR to 1/4-inch instead of leaving this. I use this all the time, way more than this guy here. I also carry a super long 3.5mm cable, and this is mainly because there was one DJ last year, even though he had an XLR out, he just didn't let me plug into it at all. He was like, nope, the only output you're going to get is 3.5mm. Honestly, there's not much else you can do there. Some vendors are just difficult to work with. So I was just super happy that I had this with me and I was still able to get an audio feed. And yeah, this takes up pretty much no space in the bag. So I just kind of keep it in that little pouch, which then all just stays together in my case. And lastly, I also carry some cheap headphones with me to monitor audio as well. Now let's get into like all the little accessories that make your life super easy, starting with monitor mounts. And trust me, I've tried so many monitor mounts, it's not even funny. I think I've bought every single one that SmallRig sells on Amazon. And the one that I have really settled on is this guy right over here. And this is the one with the NATO rail lock at the back. And these are great because for my FX3s, I just have a NATO rail attachment up top and these just slide on, you lock them, you're good to go. And these also have an RE locating pin for like my Shinobi 7 to make sure my monitor doesn't spin on itself. So at the moment, this is my favorite monitor mount to use. This is also something new that I've added to my bag. And I've said last year as well that I'm a huge fan of carrying like power banks as like a last resort option. In case everything else fails, you have an ultimate backup that can charge pretty much everything. And since everything is USB-C these days, it's all super compatible. This can charge pretty much everything from my cameras to my drones to my gimbal to like my V-mount batteries if I need to, or even my Sony NPF batteries. This is just like a one-time fix for everything. So I love carrying power banks, but I used to carry this guy right here. And honestly, I didn't really have a problem with it until I saw this new offering. I mean, look at how much smaller it is. And there's the exact same capacity, 25,000 milliamp hours. And actually, this smaller one, since it's newer, it actually has better functionality because it also does a 100 watt out of the USB-C. So I could charge my MacBook Pro straight from this with no problems, just with the USB-C cable. That's fantastic. And 25,000 milliamp hours is more than what you need for a wedding day. This is from a company called iKnew, and I've used their products for a long time, so I can speak for their longevity. Like I've had this guy, I have two of these actually. I've had this guy for 2.5 years, I think. This one actually, they reached out, they sent this out to me. I don't have to include this in this video or anything. They're not paying me for anything, but I was just really interested in checking out these like really mini sized power banks. And especially because it's offering the same thing. I don't know if you guys noticed, but in last year's video, I used to place my power bank vertically because this doesn't fit any other way. So you have to kind of stand it up in the camera bag. But this guy, since it's super small, I can just place it on top. In a camera bag or camera case where, you know, space is of a premium, this type of tech is something that I get super excited about because you're getting the exact same or even better functionality for the same price and half the size. Like for example, this drone batteries case is a lot bigger than the one that I had last year. So I have to accommodate for that. So the first thing that would go out would be my backup in the power bank, and I don't want to get rid of it. So something like this, I'm getting the exact same functionality for a smaller size. I'm just a huge fan of this. I'll link this guy and everything else that I'm gonna mention in this video down in the description, and those are all gonna be affiliate links, so I would really appreciate if you guys could support the channel by using those links down below at no additional cost to you. Actually, right underneath this power bank, I carry a bunch of Sony NPF batteries, and it can fit 3 kind of perfectly. And I have 3 of these 970s and 3 more of the 990s. So this is usually more than enough that I need for like any kind of monitors or lights that I'm taking with me. 3 of each, and I keep these ones for the monitors and these ones for the lights, and they stack on top of each other very nicely. and the power bank just goes right on top of that. It all fits in there very nicely. I think that's everything for like the main compartment here. And as for the lid organizer, not super exciting stuff there. There's a long pouch along the bottom, and that has all of my Sony batteries for my cameras. I carry 18 batteries with me total, or it might be 19, one of those two, and 4 of them stay in the camera, and then the rest are just in that long pouch along the back there. I also carry these short 3-foot HDMI cables for my 2 monitors that I take with me, and I also have some Zeiss lens wipes just in case I need to clean anything while filming. And the last thing I carry with me would be extra AA and AAA batteries for the zoom and the task cams respectively. But that is a lot of stuff that I fit in this case here. And this is what kind of why I recommend cases over camera bags, because there's no way this all fits in one camera bag. Just the 4 camera bodies alone, like that just eliminates camera bags completely. So I do recommend camera cases. But some stuff that this is not going to fit would be like gimbals, tripods, monopods, stuff like that. So for all those items, I bought like a cheap rolling bag from Amazon. I think it's from a company called Newer, and it fits all my tripods, monopods, gimbals just fine. And for gimbals, I use my DJI RS2, still the trusty old gimbal from like 3 years ago. It works just fine. I haven't really had any issues. For tripods, I have 2 of the exact same tripod, and that would be the iFootage TC6S carbon fiber tripod. It's the same one from last year, but last year I only had 1. I picked up another one, and I got rid of my Mi video tripod that I had because it broke. Mainly that's why. So I have 2 of the exact same tripods. I also have the iFootage Cobra 3 monopod. Okay, I think we covered everything. That is everything I take with me to film weddings. And if you guys have any questions about any of this stuff, please leave them down below and I'll try my best to answer them. Again, links to everything down in the description as well. And yeah, that's about everything for me today. If you guys like this video, don't forget to leave it a like. And if you guys want to check out the video I made complaining about Sony cameras a little bit, you guys can check that out right over here. And I'll see you guys there.